Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Stamp Club meeting. And today we are going to make a very fun, it's kind of a modified easel card. You can see on the side it stands up like an easel. I know you can't see that because you're looking at it from above. But what's really cool is there is another card on the inside. So when you open it up, you have a little card where you can write your message. And then you can close this back up by simply taking that front flap from the card on the inside and tucking it underneath a little piece that is put on the front. And I have made one more that I'll show you. I haven't finished it off. This is made primarily from designer series paper, including the front. And the only difference, and you may or may not notice it unless I point it out, is the front is a little bit longer than this one. And I'll talk about that and the differences. But I'm going to replicate the one on the left. And before I get started, I do want to thank Karen Titus. She is a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the Upper Midwest, and I saw a video that she had done on a card like this. I think she had been gifted a card and then kind of figured out how to make it. And I've just changed one thing, and I'll point it out when we get there. But we're going to dive in because this is pretty easy to do. So we are starting with a piece of paper that measures 8.5 by 5.5. And then it is scored in two places. And you can almost think that you're making a Z-fold card, because if you were doing a vertical Z-fold, you would be making the same score lines. So you're going to score at 2 1/8, and you're going to score at 4 1/4. So 2 1/8 and 4 1/4. So just thinking about that, 4 1/4 is going to get you halfway to the full length of 8.5. And then we're going to have the 4 1/4, which means we go to 2 1/8. Okay. So again, 8.5, 5.5. On the 8.5 side, you're going to score at 2 1/8 and 4 1/4. And then we're going to do some burnishing. So I'm simply going to fold the card in half at that 4 1/4 and just give that a nice little burnish. You can use any kind of cardstock. I'm going to experiment and see if designer series paper, even as the card base, would work. And then I'm just going to, because I like working with my right hand, I've just turned that. So this is the open side. And here's my score at 2 1/8. And I'm going to score that back. And I'll give that a nice little burnish as well. So at this point, you can see that this could be turned into a Z-fold card. We've done those before. But we're not going to be doing a vertical card. We're going to do a horizontal card. So all we're going to do is turn it this way. And this is going to end up being, we look at the card, this is going to be the card base. So we've done the back, the front step. All right. The next thing to do is to put the designer series paper or whatever paper you're going to use to decorate. We're going to put a piece in the middle, and then we're going to put a piece on each side of the step. And I'm using some from the Country Woods designer series paper. I was actually in a Facebook group, and our challenge this month was to make something that was black and white, to really use just black and white. And that's why I made this card. So the Country Woods designer series paper is paper that was carried over from last year. It is still available. It is absolutely gorgeous. And it really did what I needed to for black and white. You're going to have 3 pieces. We're going to obviously put the bigger piece in the back, and then these 2 pieces are going to go on the steps. The dimensions, and I have a tutorial. I will make sure that that is included when I post this. And everybody in the stamp club did receive the tutorial. So hopefully you have that fairly handy. This is 5 1/4. 5 1/4 inches wide, 4 inches high. So 5 1/4 wide, 4 high. And then you can see that the bottom two pieces are also 5 1/4 wide because we're going to be putting them on the same width for the card base. So each of these is 5 1/4 wide. And then the height is 1 7/8. And typically I don't do eighths, but because this card, when you do that 2 1/8, to get everything centered, you are going to cut this to 1 7/8. I am not trying to insult your intelligence of math, believe me. If you get hung up on where the eighths are, 1 7/8 is between 1 1/4 and 2. So it's that eighth right in between those two. All right. So again, 5 1/4 all lengths. This is 4 inches high. These two are 1 7/8. Now, there's a particular order that I like to put these on, and it may seem a little odd, but there's a reason. The first one I'm going to do is the big one in the back. And you are simply going to center that in the back of your card. I'm just going to get these two out of the way so I can see this a little bit better. And I really am going to just try and center that right on the back of the card. If you don't get it completely centered, it's okay. And you saw on the other card, I used a green, which is a retired designer series paper. And I thought that did really well too. But I think it would be fun to switch and see if designer series paper would be strong enough to support the card if it was used as the card base. Okay, so I'm just going to put that kind of in the middle. And I'm going to turn this completely over and just give it a little burnish with my hand. I find that smooths out the glue. I use the Tombow, and that should be good. All right, the next piece that I'm going to put on is the front. The reason is I want to make sure that I can get the edge. Let me bring that in. I want to make sure that I can get the edge kind of visually matched up against where the edge is on the back, the one that I just put in. And I find it easier to do it this way. If you find it easier to do it in a different order, please do what makes you comfortable. This is one of those designs that I really think you are going to find will be one that you'll go to because it is so quick. And you can use up a lot of your designer series paper. So again, I'm just trying to line that up left and right and trying to get it centered. Now, if you want, you could skip putting the paper on the inside because, frankly, you don't really see it. You don't see it when the card is closed, but when you open it up, you will see a blank space if you don't have the designer series paper there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it on, but if you don't want to, you don't need to. And now when I put this piece on, I have two pieces that give me a good visual reference to get that one centered. This cardstock, or I'm sorry, the designer series paper, the wood, I find is useful for any season. It is just beautiful. It looks very three-dimensional, very realistic. And I would imagine, I don't know it for a fact, but I would imagine that in the new catalog, which will be coming out in September, I should be able to order those next week. I don't know that it's carrying forward. So if you love it, you might want to grab some. All right, so we have our three pieces. That's your card base. You're all done with the base. The next piece that we are going to work on is we're going to build the inside card. So I'm just getting the example back in here. So the next piece we're going to do is the black card that is the inside of this card. To do that, I am going to use a piece of black cardstock. This measures 7 inches by 3.5. So 7 inches by 3.5. Now, I told you that on the card, the second card that I made, let me bring this back out, that you might notice that the inside card is a little bit longer. Let me just put these side by side. So the one on the left, the black card is made by a 7 inch by 3.5. Over here, I added 1/4 of an inch down at the end. So if you want a longer card, you can make this initial piece of cardstock 7.25 inches long. It's up to you. I'm going to do the one on the left, but if you want to make it a little bit longer, you can make it at 7.25. Whether you do 7.25 or 7, you are going to score at the exact same place. So you'll see that this measures 7. If it measured 7.25, I would still score it at 3.5. So you're going to go ahead and score this at 3.5. Essentially, we're just cutting it in half. Half of 7 is 3.5. And that is going to be what we're going to use for that inside card. So I'm simply going to fold that right in half and burnish it. And then I suggest that at this point, you go ahead and put in the piece of cardstock that you would use to write your message. And that piece of cardstock is 3.25 inches square, because this part is 3.5 inches square. So we're just making it a little bit smaller so it will fit right in. Now, if you made your piece 7.25 inches long and you score it 3.5, make sure that the piece that is put onto the back is put onto the 3.5 side. This would be longer than 3.5 because that's what you're going to put in the front. And you can go ahead and just adhere that straight down on your card.
And this is what?
The card is 3.25 square. So I'm just going to put that, and I use just basic white. You could definitely put some really pretty designer series paper inside, maybe a light color that you could still write on. But this would be a really, really pretty note card. And you'll notice that the one that I did on the second card, I did the black. I still put the white on the inside, but notice that the front of this is a little bit longer. That's where that 1/4 inch comes into play. All right, so this started as 7 by 3.5, scored at 3.5, and then the inside back is a 3.25 square piece of whatever you would like. Okay. So now we have the two pieces for pretty much the card base and the way that the card is going to work together. And here's where we're going. The piece that is the smaller card is going to be adhered to the back of the card base. And then we're going to allow that front to hang over the front of the card. and then we're going to put a piece over the front that will keep it from popping out. So what I suggest you do is kind of open up your card, and then you can visually see a little bit better where you're placing the inside card. Just make sure that you have the white piece on the back. And what you want to do, and you can do this a couple of ways, you want to kind of center the small card on the back. And I am just going to get a little bit of Tombow, and I am going to go ahead and adhere that down. I'm just triple checking that I'm putting glue on the side that has the white cardstock. And you don't need a lot. And I have my card base opened. So this is where we were. I'm just going to open that up so that I can put that right on the back. And I'm going to kind of lean this up toward myself. And I'm just trying to get it kind of in the middle. If it's not, don't worry about it. And I'm also trying to make it kind of straight on the top and straight-ish on the bottom. And I like to just move it around and look at it from each angle. And that helps me to see, is it in the middle? Is it kind of lined up? And that looks good enough. If you really wanted to be particular, you could definitely get out a T-ruler or another ruler and get it right in the middle. But perfection is not what we're going for, and it will be just fine. And then I'm just going to take my bone folder and go over that to try and make sure that it's as flat as it can be. And there we are. So here's the bones of the card. Once you get that done, you can see that you've got your easel, you've got this card that is folding over the top. Now what we need to do is attach a piece of, it's actually two pieces of cardstock and designer series paper that are layered together that are going to get attached right over the front. But we need to make sure that when we attach it, we're not messing up the ability to pop the front of the card behind what we're going to build. So what I suggest is that you get a piece of cardstock. I just decided to use the same color that I did on the card base. This piece, because I knew I was going to have a small sentiment, is pretty tiny. If I had a bigger sentiment, because you could definitely make it, taller, you can kind of mess around with this and do what you would like. But I knew I was going to have a small sentiment. So what I've done is I've taken one more piece of the same designer series paper. This one, and this is only an example, you can do what you would like. This piece measures 4¼ inches wide. It's a little bit wider because we're going to put dimensionals on either end. And you don't want those dimensionals to get in the way of moving the front of the card. So this one is 4¼ inches wide by ½ inch tall. And again, it's because I had a really small sentiment. Now, what you can also do, and let me show you, is on the other card that I made, if you don't know what your sentiment is going to be right now, don't worry about it. Here's why. If you build that little piece with cardstock, with designer series paper, I can come back in and I can put a bigger sentiment over this and it won't interfere. It's just that I'm building this little piece so that it would hold it down. Then I'm going to attach my sentiment to a piece of cardstock just because I want a border around it. And again, you can play with the size. This one is 4 3/8. So it's a little bit longer, 4¼ by 5/8, a little bit bigger than ½ inch. And it's just because I wanted to have a border all the way around. And I'm going to go ahead and just attach those. So don't get hung up if you don't have a small sentiment. You don't need it. You can build this without any sentiment on it. You can put your own sentiment on this piece and it won't interfere with the mechanism for the card. Just a bunch of different ways you can do that. Whatever you do, whether it is with or without a sentiment, when you get to this point and you know what you're going to attach, grab a couple of dimensionals. And this is how I suggest you put them on. I'm just going to put on a bone folder so that my card will stay sort of flat. I'm going to turn my piece over. It doesn't matter if it's the right side up, the wrong side up. The reason I'm doing this is I want to see how much room I have to put those dimensionals so they're not going to interfere with that little card. And I'm choosing to use little dimensionals. If you don't have the little ones, take a big one and cut it in half. It will do the exact same thing. But these ones are a really nice size for this. The big one will definitely work. And I'm just trying to put these on kind of as far over to the edge as I can. And that way I'll be assured that they're not going to get in the way of what I want that card to do. And then I'll put them on the other side as well. You do want some height because you're going to be tucking in the front of the card behind this strip. And then you can just put that strip down and get an idea of where you want it to go. And this is where you have some leeway. You could put it up higher. You could put it in the middle. I don't suggest you put it too low because if you do, when you open the card, and you can see what I'm talking about, I'm just going to hold this. If I put it too low and I open the card, the bottom of the card gets dangerously close to the bottom of my little strip. So it might pop out. So I'm going to choose to try to get that strip kind of in the middle of the bottom. And again, if it's not, don't worry about it. I do like these little black dimensionals too. They tend to be not as obvious as the white ones. And I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because they don't catch the eye as much. So I am standing up here and I'm looking over and I'm just trying to get this kind of centered left and right. It's not really as important to get it centered vertically, but horizontally. And then I'm just going to pop that down. And now we've got the mechanism done. So you can test it because you can open up the front of that card and then you can just pop it right back in. You just kind of bend it over with your thumb, pop it right back in. And what's really nice is it will lay flat and you can put that into an envelope to mail. And then when it stands up, I will show you just by turning it. When it stands up, it's about right there. So the bottom of the card definitely is not going to pop out. This is what I changed from what I saw that Karen Titus did. And I loved her card. She put dimensionals all the way across on this and didn't have the ability to tuck the front of the card in. And it kind of stood a little bit taller and you had to get it to stick on the dimensional. So I wanted something that was a little bit more secure, which is why I decided to do it like that. And if your card is taller, if you make it the 7 1/4, you're going to get a little bit more depth. So you can make it stick down below if you wanted to do that. And now it is up to you. It is completely up to you about what you want to do. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips in the way I decorated this. And one is that I wanted to get some just really good coverage of design. So I did use some dies, and I'll talk about those in a minute. And I also wanted to get a really kind of elegant feel. So this is white and silver. I punched or die cut the same dies that I used on the first card. And I'm just going to do a little bit. I'm not going to do all of it, but you will get the idea as I go through. These are beautiful dies. They're from the Nature's Symphony dies. And I really like them. They're very, very pretty. They have a lot of detail. And they go with the Nature's Symphony stamp set. That's where I got the thank you that I used. These are the dies. And the one that is really kind of fun, this looks like a little bit of bark that I cut out a couple of times. And then I used this one to do the leaves. So some advice, and it's short. Because this card is going to be opened and closed and potentially opened and closed, I really recommend that down at the bottom, you don't put anything that is multi-layer because it could get stuck. So what I chose to do was down at the bottom of the card, I put stems. And I made sure that the stem here and these two leaves are flat. They are literally glued down. Everything else is a little bit off the card intentionally, so there's some dimension, there's some free flow. But right down here, these are glued down. That way, if people take the card out, put it back in, there's nothing that's going to get caught down here. So that's one thing that I recommend. And I also recommend that you put whatever it is that you're going to put down at the bottom first, and then kind of close your card and do the rest of the design. Because that way you're also going to make sure that nothing interferes with that little card that will continue to be moved. So what I did, and I'll just do it real quick. I took 2 of the die cuts, and I went ahead and I glued the white one right on top of the silver. And I'll do that really quick. Again, I'm not going to complete the decoration because I'll just do a little bit and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. But all I did was put a little glue on the bottom of that stem and on these leaves. And then I don't like to have a lot of glue on a really intricate die. So I always take a piece of just scrap paper. It's just from a stack of paper that I have. And I'm just gently taking some of that glue off. That way also it won't gush out everywhere. And then I'm simply going to hold this and get those 3 bottom pieces aligned. And then I'm going to open up my card and I'm going to go ahead and add those right onto the card. That way, like I said, you won't have anything that will be sticking out and will detract from moving the card. And then for additional pieces that I put on, I did put a couple of the wood. It's a little hard to see on camera, but I put a couple of these, one to the side, one over here that was off a little bit as well. I added parts of a second grouping of the leaves down here on the bottom, just to give a little bit more decoration on the right side. And then to finish it off, I added a few little embellishments. I do have some rhinestones that are tucked in various places. And I do have a couple of iridescent pearls that are also tucked in a few places. And again, I did that so that it would be black, white, and silver. This card is the same design, and you can see it is a very, very different feel. It has designer series paper on the front, which honestly I think is beautiful. And rather than take the time to do die cutting and putting the die cuts where you want them, you can very easily put a really pretty designer series paper on the top of the card that is on the inside. Match the designer series paper on the piece that is holding that card down. I can put a sentiment on here. I can add some jewels on here, and it will be an absolutely gorgeous card. I'm really looking forward to making some of these for Christmas. I think a manger scene on the front with some pretty maybe poinsettias or something, you know, as the background would just be gorgeous, and a beautiful message inside would just make the card. So it's very simple. I really hope that you use this design, and I hope that you share. If you do make one, that you share it with us so that we can see them. But that is it. It is that simple. And I think you're going to enjoy putting cards together for many different occasions using this design. So I'm going to go ahead and I will stop the recording. I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. And thanks for watching.